Zara lived in a small village where the sound of birds woke her before the sun rose each morning. Her life was not like that of other children. While they played in the fields and laughed freely, Zara spent her days cleaning floors, washing clothes, and cooking for her stepmother, Madame Adise. Since her parents passed away when she was a little girl, she had no one left to protect her. The only home she knew was the one that constantly reminded her she didn't belong. Every morning, she would rise quietly from the thin mat she slept on and rush to the kitchen before Madame Adise woke up. The smell of smoke from the firewood filled her small eyes with tears, but she continued to work. She fetched water from the stream far away, carried heavy firewood on her small shoulders, and swept every corner of the house. Her palms were always rough and bruised. Her back ached, but she never complained. Madame Adise was a proud woman who loved comfort. She sat on her wooden chair all day, giving orders in a harsh tone. "Zara, you are too slow," she would shout even when Zara had done everything right. When guests came, Madame Adise smiled sweetly and pretended to be kind, but once they left, she became cruel again. Zara had no friends, no one to talk to, and no one to listen to her tears. At meal times, Madame Adise ate first, leaving whatever remained for Zara. Some days that meant only a few pieces of cold yam or burnt rice. Still, Zara was thankful for anything she got. She ate slowly, thinking of her mother who used to cook with love and smile as they ate together. Now, those memories were the only warmth she had left in her heart. One evening, as Zara was washing plates, Madame Adise's golden bracelet slipped from her wrist and fell on the floor. When she couldn't find it later, she became angry. "Zara!" she screamed, her voice echoing through the house. Zara rushed in, frightened, holding a wet towel in her hand. "Yes, ma," she replied softly. "Where is my bracelet? You stole it, didn't you?" Madame Adise shouted, her eyes full of suspicion. Zara shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "No, ma. I didn't take it. I swear I didn't." But Madame Adise didn't listen. Her anger grew. She slapped Zara across the face and the pain burned through her cheek. "Liar. You ungrateful child," she yelled. Zara fell to the ground, sobbing and begging, but the woman's heart was hard. Later that day, when the bracelet was found behind a chair, Madame Adise didn't even apologize. Instead, she said coldly, "You are too careless. I don't want you here anymore. Pack your things and leave." Zara froze in shock. "But ma, where will I go?" she whispered. "That's not my problem," Madame Adise replied. She threw Zara's small bag out the door, filled only with a worn-out dress, a piece of soap, and an old blanket that belonged to Zara's mother. "Get out!" she shouted, slamming the door behind her. Zara stood outside as the sun began to set, her bare feet covered in dust. The air was cold and her heart felt heavy. She looked back at the house one last time, the place where she had worked, suffered, and cried for years, but it no longer felt like home. She started walking down the road, unsure where to go. Her stomach growled with hunger, but she ignored it. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered softly, "Mama, I wish you were here." The wind blew gently as if answering her pain. Night fell quickly, and Zara found a small tree by the roadside. She sat there, hugging her bag tightly. She looked up at the stars, thinking about her parents. She remembered her father's laughter, her mother's gentle voice, and how happy they once were. Everything had changed so fast. As she sat there in silence, a small firefly flew around her. She watched its soft light and smiled weakly. It reminded her that even in darkness, a small light could still shine. "Maybe life will be kind to me one day," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "Maybe something good will happen." The night was long and the cold wind bit her skin. Dogs barked in the distance and the sound of crickets filled the air. Zara pulled her blanket closer around her and tried to sleep. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and her heart was full of fear. But somewhere deep inside her, a tiny hope refused to die. She believed that one day someone would see her pain. The next morning the sun rose slowly over the hills, painting the sky in soft orange and gold. Zara stood up, brushing the dust from her dress. Her stomach was empty and her throat was dry, but she decided to keep walking. She didn't know where the road would lead, but she believed that if she kept moving, something would change. As she walked through the village, people glanced at her but said nothing. Some looked away while others whispered. Yet Zara kept her head high. Every step she took away from Madame Adise's house was a step closer to a new beginning, even if she didn't see it yet. By noon she reached a river and knelt down to drink some water. Her reflection looked back at her, tired eyes, tangled hair, and a face that still held quiet strength. She smiled faintly at herself and said, "Don't give up, Zara. You're stronger than this. The wind blew softly again, brushing against her cheeks, almost as if the world was whispering back, "Yes, you are." She picked up her small bag and started walking once more, leaving behind the pain of yesterday. Though her future was uncertain, her heart was still full of faith. And deep down she didn't know that somewhere ahead, fate was already waiting. A kind man, a new life, and a future she never imagined. That night, as the stars appeared again, Zara lay under the open sky and whispered, "Thank you, Mama, for teaching me to be brave." Her eyes closed slowly, her heart beating with both fear and hope. For the first time in a long while, Zara fell asleep not as a servant, but as a girl dreaming of a better tomorrow. Zara walked aimlessly for days, her bare feet covered in dust and her body weak from hunger. The sun was hot during the day, and at night the cold wind bit through her thin dress. She had no home, no family, and no one to turn to. Every step she took felt heavier than the last, but she refused to stop. She told herself that she must keep going. Maybe somewhere, someone would show her kindness. During the first few days she stayed near the village market. She tried to find small jobs, sweeping or carrying baskets, but most people ignored her. Some chased her away, thinking she was a thief or a beggar. She didn't blame them, she just smiled weakly and walked away. When hunger became too strong, she begged for coins near the fruit stalls. Sometimes, kind strangers gave her a piece of bread or a small banana. Other times, she went to bed with an empty stomach. At night, when the market closed, Zara would find a corner under an old wooden stall to sleep. The sound of rats running by made her nervous, and the cold ground hurt her back. Still, she would curl up with her small bag and old blanket, whispering to herself, "Tomorrow will be better." Her stomach growled, but her heart still believed that one day her suffering would end. One morning she woke up early to the sound of people setting up their shops. Her body ached, but she forced herself to stand. She helped a woman sweep her stall and was given a small piece of roasted corn in return. It wasn't much, but to Zara, it felt like a feast. She ate slowly, thanking God for the little she had. As days passed, Zara began to notice the kindness of strangers. A young boy once gave her a bottle of water when he saw her sitting tired by the road. An old fruit seller gave her leftover oranges one evening. Each small act of kindness gave her hope, a reminder that not everyone in the world was cruel. One afternoon, as she walked down a quiet street, she saw an old woman trying to carry a heavy basket filled with vegetables. The basket was too much for her frail body and she was struggling. Without thinking twice, Zara ran over. "Mama, let me help you," she said softly. The woman looked at her with surprise, then smiled weakly and nodded. Zara lifted the basket carefully and followed the old woman home. The woman's house was small but warm. She thanked Zara and offered her a bowl of soup. Zara tried to refuse, but the woman insisted. "Eat, my child. You look hungry," she said kindly. Tears filled Zara's eyes as she ate. It had been days since she'd had a proper meal. When she finished, the old woman placed her hand on Zara's head and said, "Goodness never goes unseen, my child. Even when the world forgets you, heaven remembers." Zara smiled faintly, bowing her head in gratitude. She thanked the woman and left before nightfall, not wanting to trouble her further. That simple blessing stayed in her heart. It gave her strength to face another day. But the days that followed grew harder. The sky turned gray and the air became heavy. Rain began to fall and soon it turned into a storm. Zara had nowhere to hide. She ran under a tree beside the road, clutching her small bag tightly. Her clothes were soaked and her body shivered from the cold. She looked around. The streets were empty, shops were closed, and everyone had gone home to warmth. But she had none. Her eyes filled with tears as thunder rolled in the distance. She hugged her knees and began to cry. "Why is life so hard for me?" she whispered. Her voice was soft and trembling. "God, please help me," she prayed. "I don't want to give up. Please, just one chance." As the rain poured, she closed her eyes, tired and weak. She didn't know if anyone could hear her. Her body trembled, and her mind drifted between sleep and wakefulness. Hours passed. The rain softened and the streets grew quiet again. Zara was half asleep under the tree when she heard the distant sound of a car engine. It was unusual. No one drove down that road at night. The headlights appeared, cutting through the rain. Zara lifted her head weakly and blinked against the light. The car slowed down and stopped a few feet away. She was too tired to move, too weak to run. The door opened and a tall man stepped out, holding an umbrella. He was dressed neatly, his voice calm but full of concern. "Hey, little girl," he said gently. "What are you doing out here in the rain?" Zara couldn't speak at first. Her lips trembled. I have nowhere to go," she finally whispered. The man frowned softly, pity filling his eyes. You'll get sick out here. Come, let me help you, he said. Zara hesitated, afraid. She had learned not to trust easily. But something about his voice was different. It wasn't harsh or commanding. It was warm, like the voice of her father long ago. Slowly she nodded. The man took off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. Don't worry, he said. You're safe now. He led her to the car and helped her sit inside. The warmth of the car made her body relax, and she felt her eyelids grow heavy. The man spoke to his driver quietly, then looked back at her. What's your name? He asked. Zara, she said softly, her voice barely audible. All right, Zara, he replied with a small smile. I'm Mr. Ade. You're going to be all right now. As the car drove away, Zara looked out the window at the dark, wet streets. For the first time in a long while, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: safety. She didn't know who this man was or why he had stopped for her, but deep inside, she believed her prayer had been answered. When they reached a large gate, Zara's eyes widened. The house beyond it was bigger than anything she had ever seen. Lights glowed warmly from the windows and flowers lined the walkway. Mr. Ade opened the door and helped her out. Come in, he said kindly. You can rest and eat something warm. Zara hesitated for a moment, looking around in disbelief. She could hardly believe she was standing before such a place. Thank you, sir, she said softly, almost afraid it was a dream. He smiled. No need to thank me, child. Sometimes life brings people together for a reason. That night, as Zara sat near the fire in Mr. Ade's home, wrapped in a soft blanket, she closed her eyes and whispered another prayer. Thank you, God, she said, tears falling down her cheeks. Thank you for sending help. She didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one that would change everything she had ever known. The morning sun rose slowly over the city, casting a soft golden light over the wet ground. The rain from the night before had stopped, leaving the air cool and fresh. Zara sat under the same old tree, her clothes still damp and her hair sticking to her face. She hadn't eaten in 2 days and her body felt weak. She tried to stay awake, afraid someone might chase her away, but her eyes were heavy with exhaustion. She hugged her small bag tightly. It was the only thing she owned. Inside it were a torn photo of her parents and a little piece of cloth her mother had once sewn for her. She looked at the photo and whispered softly, Mama, Papa, I miss you. Her voice trembled as she spoke. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand and looked around, hoping maybe someone would notice her and help. Just then, a black car drove slowly down the road. It was shiny, clean, and clearly expensive, the kind of car Zara had only seen from a distance. She didn't pay much attention at first. Cars passed her every day, but no one ever stopped. However, this one slowed down and came to a halt a few meters from where she sat. The door opened and a tall man stepped out. He wore a simple but elegant suit, and his shoes shone like glass. His face was calm, but his eyes were kind and full of concern. This was Mr. Chitty, a wealthy businessman who was known in the city for his generosity and humble heart. People respected him because even though he was rich, he never forgot where he came from. He walked slowly toward Zara, his shoes sinking slightly in the wet ground. Hey, young lady, he said gently. Are you all right? Zara quickly wiped her tears and looked up. Her heart started to race. She wasn't used to people speaking kindly to her, especially not someone who looked so important. I'm fine, sir, she whispered, lowering her eyes. Her voice was soft and shaky. Mr. Chitty looked at her carefully. Her face was pale, her lips dry, and her clothes soaked and torn. She didn't look fine at all. Are you sure? He asked again. You look tired. And hungry. Zara shook her head. No, sir, I'm okay, she replied, trying to sound strong. But at that very moment, her stomach growled loudly. She froze in embarrassment, her cheeks turning red. She looked down, wishing the ground would swallow her up. Mr. Chitty couldn't help but smile softly. He turned to his driver and said, Bring that food basket from the car. The driver quickly returned with a small basket filled with bread, fruit, and bottled water. Here, Mr. Chitty said, kneeling slightly and placing the basket in front of her. Eat something, my dear. Zara hesitated. No one had ever treated her this kindly before. I can't take this, sir, she said quietly. You don't even know me. Mr. Chitty smiled. You don't have to know someone to show them kindness. Please eat. It's okay. Her eyes filled with tears again. Slowly, she reached for a piece of bread and took a small bite. Then another. The moment the food touched her tongue, she felt her strength returning. She ate quietly, her eyes still lowered, afraid to look up. Mr. Chitty stood nearby, watching her with a thoughtful expression. After a few minutes he spoke softly. "What's your name?" Zara swallowed the last bite and looked up nervously. "My name is Zara, sir." He nodded. "That's a beautiful name, Zara. Tell me, why are you out here all alone?" Her fingers trembled as she held the bottle of water. For a moment she wanted to lie, to say she was fine or that she had a home. But something in his eyes told her he truly wanted to listen. So she told him the truth. She told him about her parents, how they had died when she was young. She spoke about Madame Adiz, her cruel stepmother who had treated her like a servant, shouting and beating her for the smallest mistakes. She told him about being thrown out, about walking the streets for days, about sleeping under stalls and trees. Her voice broke several times and tears streamed down her cheeks. Mr. Chitty listened quietly, his heart heavy with sadness. He didn't interrupt or look away. He simply listened, something no one had ever done for Zara. When she finished, she wiped her tears and said softly, "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to bother you with my story." He shook his head. "You didn't bother me, Zara. You did nothing wrong." For a few moments they both sat in silence. The sound of birds chirping filled the air. Then Mr. Chitty took a deep breath and said, "You've been through too much for someone so young. But your story isn't over yet." Zara looked at him, confused. "What do you mean, sir?" He smiled gently. "I mean, you deserve a chance. A real chance to live, not just survive. You can't stay here. It's not safe." Her eyes widened. "But, where would I go?" "Come with me," he said simply. "I'll make sure you're taken care of. You'll have food, a bed, and a chance to start again." Zara's lips parted in disbelief. No one had ever offered her help like this. She wanted to believe him, but fear still lingered in her heart. "Why would you help me, sir? You don't even know me." Mr. Chitty smiled warmly. "Maybe I don't know you," he said softly, "but I can see your heart. And I know pain when I see it. I've been there once too. Someone helped me when I was lost. Now it's my turn to help you." Tears welled up in Zara's eyes again. She wanted to speak, but words wouldn't come out. Instead, she nodded slowly. Mr. Chitty extended his hand. "Come on, Zara. Let's go home." She hesitated for a moment, looking at his hand. It was steady, firm, and kind. Taking a deep breath, she placed her small, trembling hand in his. His grip was gentle but strong, the first safe touch she'd felt in years. As they walked toward the car, Zara glanced back at the tree where she had spent her coldest night. Her heart ached, but this time it was different. She wasn't leaving with fear, she was leaving with hope. Inside the car, she sat quietly, still unsure if she was dreaming. Mr. Chitty offered her a soft towel to dry her hands and face. The car smelled clean and warm. As they drove through the city, Zara looked out the window, watching the tall buildings pass by. Mr. Chitty noticed her wonder and smiled. "You'll see," he said. "Your life is about to change." Zara turned to him with teary eyes. "Thank you, sir," she whispered. "I'll never forget your kindness." He nodded. "Just promise me one thing, Zara, when life gets better, help someone else who needs it. That's how kindness continues." Zara smiled faintly. "I promise, sir." The car drove on, leaving behind the streets that had once been her prison. For the first time in years, Zara felt safe, truly safe. She didn't know what awaited her next, but deep inside, she felt something powerful rising within her, hope. And though she didn't know it yet, this was the day her life began to change forever. Zara could hardly believe her eyes when she stepped into Mr. Chitty's house. It was large, beautiful, and full of light, so different from the dark corners and cold streets she had known all her life. The air smelled clean, the walls were bright, and every face that greeted her looked kind and calm. She stood at the doorway, holding her small torn bag, unsure whether she should walk in or turn around. Mr. Chitty smiled at her gently. "You're safe here, Zara," he said softly. "Come in. This is your home now." Her lips trembled. "My home?" she whispered as if testing the words. She had not said that word for years. Slowly she stepped inside. One of the housemaids, a cheerful woman named Ao, led her to a warm room with a soft bed and clean blankets. Zara ran her hands across the blanket. It felt like a dream. For the first time in her life, she didn't have to sleep on the ground. That night, she couldn't sleep easily. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her heart filled with both gratitude and fear. She whispered to herself, "I hope I don't wake up and find out this isn't real." But when morning came, the warmth of the sun on her face told her it was real. The days that followed changed Zara's life. Mr. Chitty gave her new clothes, shoes, and proper meals. He told her she didn't need to work, not yet. Instead, he wanted her to rest and regain her strength. For days she ate slowly, still not used to having enough food. The staff in the house noticed her politeness and gentle manners. She always said thank you, always helped with small chores even when no one asked her to. Soon everyone in the house grew fond of her. One afternoon, Mr. Chitty sat with her in the garden. The breeze was soft and the smell of flowers filled the air. "Zara," he said, "you told me you never finished school. Would you like to study again?" Her eyes widened. "Study?" she asked, almost too afraid to hope. He nodded with a smile. "Yes, you're still young. You deserve an education. I'll enroll you in a good school. You just have to promise me one thing, that you'll give it your best." Tears filled her eyes as she nodded quickly. "I promise, sir. I won't waste the chance." The next week, Zara started school. At first it was strange. The other students wore neat uniforms and carried new bags, while Zara felt shy and out of place. But Mr. Chitty had bought her books, a clean uniform and everything she needed. Every morning he reminded her, "Remember, Zara, you belong here just as much as anyone else." She studied harder than anyone. She stayed up late reading, practicing her handwriting and solving problems. Her teachers quickly noticed her dedication. Though she had missed years of learning, her intelligence and determination helped her catch up faster than anyone expected. At home, Mr. Chitty and the staff cheered her on. Ao, the maid, often said, "Zara, you make us proud every day." And when she came home with her first set of high grades, Mr. Chitty surprised her with a small celebration. "You've done well, my dear," he said, smiling proudly. "You've suffered, but your heart is pure, and that's something money can't buy." Years passed, and Zara grew into a bright, confident young woman. Her face, once filled with sadness, now glowed with hope and joy. She learned to speak clearly, walk tall, and believe in herself. She never forgot her past, but she didn't let it define her. When she graduated from school, she stood on stage, her name being called among the best students. Mr. Chitty sat in the front row, clapping proudly. As she took her certificate, tears rolled down her cheeks. She looked into the crowd and saw Mr. Chitty smiling at her, his eyes full of pride. That moment felt like a dream come true. After her graduation, Mr. Chitty invited her to work in one of his companies. She started as an assistant, learning how to manage people, organize meetings, and handle important files. At first she was nervous, everything seemed new and difficult. But she remembered what Mr. Chitty always told her: "You can do anything if you work hard and stay humble." Zara listened. She learned quickly, respected everyone, and stayed honest in everything she did. Whenever she saw cleaners or guards in the company, she greeted them with a warm smile and a kind word. She never forgot what it was like to be invisible, and she made sure no one around her felt that way. Her coworkers admired her. They saw how humble she was even as she moved up in her work. She was not just smart, she was kind. When problems arose in the office, Zara handled them calmly. When others argued, she brought peace. Slowly, everyone began to look up to her. One day, Mr. Chitty visited the office. He called Zara to his side and said to the staff, "This young woman is a reminder that where you start in life doesn't decide where you'll end up. She has earned everything she has through hard work and a pure heart." The staff clapped for her, and Zara's eyes filled with tears again. She looked at Mr. Chitty and said quietly, "Thank you, sir. I wouldn't be here without you." He smiled. "You would have found your way somehow, Zara. You were always meant to shine. I only helped you find the light." That night, as Zara sat on her balcony, looking up at the stars, she thought about her past, the nights she had slept under trees, the hunger she had felt, and the tears she had shed. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Mama, Papa, I hope you're proud of me." Her journey had not been easy, but it had shaped her into who she was, strong, humble, and full of love. She knew now that life could change in an instant and that kindness could open doors that pain had once closed. From a poor orphan with no one to care for her, Zara had become a confident young woman admired by many. And through it all, she remained the same gentle soul who had once whispered under the stars, hoping for a better life, a life that had finally begun. Zara's journey had taken her farther than she ever imagined. The same girl who had once been thrown out into the streets now stood as a respected manager in one of the biggest companies in the city. Her office was on the top floor, bright, spacious, and filled with plants she tended to herself. She liked to keep her window open so she could feel the wind and remember the days when that same wind had blown across her face as she slept under trees. Every morning, Zara arrived early, greeting every worker with a smile, from the cleaners to the security guards. She knew their struggles because she had lived them. She treated everyone with the same respect she wished she had once received. Her co-workers admired her calmness, her patience, and her kindness. They often said, "Madame Zara doesn't just manage people, she inspires them." Despite her success, Zara never allowed pride to take over her heart. She still lived simply and gave generously. Every month, she used part of her salary to support orphans and widows. She started a small home for abandoned children on the edge of the city, a clean and safe place where they could sleep, eat, and go to school. When people asked her why she spent so much on strangers, she would smile and say, "Because once I was one of them." She visited the children often, bringing food, books, and clothes. The little ones ran to her shouting, "Auntie Zara! Auntie Zara!" She laughed, hugged them tightly, and told them stories about hope. "Never think you're too small to dream," she told them. "Your beginning doesn't decide your ending." Those words stayed with every child she helped. One sunny afternoon, while Zara was reviewing some reports in her office, her secretary knocked gently on the door. "Madam, there's an elderly woman here asking to see you," she said. Zara looked up curiously. "Who is she?" "She didn't say," the secretary replied. "But she looks tired and unwell." Zara nodded. "Let her in." The door opened slowly and in walked Madame Adiz, older, thinner, and worn down by time. Her clothes were faded, and her eyes looked heavy with guilt. For a moment, Zara froze. The memories rushed back, the shouting, the cold nights, the tears. But she took a deep breath and stood tall. "Zara," Madame Adiz whispered, her voice shaking. I didn't know you would become this. I was cruel to you. I was wrong." Zara looked at her calmly. She saw not the woman who had hurt her, but a broken soul asking for mercy. She stood, walked toward her, and said softly, "Sit down." Madame Adiz hesitated, tears forming in her eyes. "I don't deserve your kindness. I just came to say I'm sorry." Zara's voice was gentle. "I forgave you a long time ago. You taught me something important, how to be strong. The pain you gave me became my strength." Madame Adiz covered her face, weeping. "You're so kind," she whispered. "I wish I had treated you like my own child." Zara handed her a glass of water. "It's never too late to be kind," she said softly. As the two women sat in silence, Mr. Chitty appeared at the door. He had been passing by when he saw the scene. A proud smile spread across his face. "Zara," he said warmly, "you've turned your pain into purpose." Zara turned to him and smiled. "You showed me how, sir. You believed in me when no one else did." Mr. Chitty nodded. "And you proved that the greatest wealth isn't money, it's compassion." When Madame Adiz finally left, Zara stood by her office window, watching the city stretch far beyond the horizon. The glass reflected her face, calm, confident, and peaceful. She thought about the little girl who once cried under a tree, the orphan who prayed for kindness, the poor servant who had nothing. That girl had not vanished. She had grown into a woman who gave hope to others. She whispered to herself, "My life began the day I chose kindness over bitterness." In the evenings, Zara often visited her children's home. She would sit on the grass watching the children laugh and play. The sound of their laughter reminded her of what she had gained through pain, strength, love, and purpose. The children adored her and the workers respected her deeply. Many of them didn't know her full story, but they could feel the warmth in her words and actions. Sometimes Mr. Chitty would visit too. Together they watched the children play and talked about life. "You've built something beautiful, Zara," he told her one day. She smiled. "You built me first, sir. This is just me giving back what I received." He nodded proudly. "That's what true success looks like." As the sun set behind the hills, Zara stood with the children, their hands in hers. The golden light touched her face, making her eyes shine. She looked at the horizon and thought about all she had been through, the cruelty, the hunger, the loneliness, and how each of those moments had shaped her into who she was now. Her story had begun in pain but ended in peace. The world had once turned its back on her, but she had learned to walk her own path, not with anger but with love. And through that love she had changed not just her life but the lives of many others. As the last rays of sunlight faded, Zara whispered again, "Thank you, God, for the journey." Every tear had a purpose. The wind carried her words softly across the playground as laughter filled the air. The orphan who had once been forgotten had become a beacon of hope, a living reminder that no matter how dark life becomes, kindness can light the way forward. The end.